Hello and welcome to the very last episode of our Halo Reach playthrough series. I'd just like to say if you have made it this long and made it all the way through with us, I really appreciate you tuning in and watching every video. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and liking the videos, it really does help us out. And we're going to hop into the last playable level and the epilogue of the Halo Reach campaign. When we left off, Six had just sacrificed himself to ensure that the Pillar of Autumn escaped in the slip space with Cortana as the story leads up to Halo 1. We open up on this cutscene where the Pillar of Autumn is drifting through space, and we can hear Cortana telling the General that they did not in fact lose the Covenant.
Cortana, all I need to know is did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.
Which sounds sad, but in this moment right about now, we see the Covenant is following the Pillar of Autumn to the start of Halo 1, which is the whole point of Reach. My favorite part about this story is that we know the start and the end of this story from the very beginning. So being able to tie it directly into the start of Halo 1 is one of my favorite parts. So after that cutscene, we load into Lone Wolf, which is the last playable level of the Halo Reach campaign, which is Noble Six without a way off the planet by himself facing the hordes of the Covenant. This is my favorite level in the campaign. It is very, very cool. I love the narrative design of this particular aspect of the story. Not many stories go through the hero's journey, all the way through, and end with the ultimate sacrifice. That's potentially a video for another day, where you talk about the hero's journey and all what that means to narrative design. But this particular story does satisfy the hero's journey, and it does satisfy the notion of a tragedy quite well. As far as the level goes for Lone Wolf, I think it's actually fairly simple, and in some ways, I suspect this might have been their test level. Most games under development will have like a test level where they can run around and test out mechanics before they build the actual levels, while the asset creators catch up and things of that nature. The actual level itself is fairly simplistic. There's a few rocks in the center, a center compound, trucks, and then you've got this big open area that you can't actually walk out into. But you can't really see anything. There's some indications that this is attached to a part of the previous mission right near the Pillar of Autumn, right on the way to Pillar of Autumn, but I'm not positive about that. I think it's mostly just a place where they tested things out, and then it was actually pretty convenient for them to do this last level. We'll notice that they have this UI effect of the cracks on the screen. No matter how many Covenant you kill here, more and more keep spawning. If you're a better player than I am, you eventually get to all Zealot class elites spawning. I probably won't get that far. I imagine I'll die fairly quickly. But like I said, the level design is actually fairly simplistic. I'm pretty sure it's an area designed for them to be able to test out mechanics like jumping, cover, how AI would track around objects, things like that. So that code is tested while the levels and assets are created, and it's part of a production pipeline that most large studios will do. They'll block out the levels and have a test level, and then the final assets are created at the same time as a lot of the code is tested. And then when it comes down to the final adjustments of the code, most of that happens while they compile the final levels and do a lot of the QA testing as they insert the assets and things of that nature. So it's not uncommon to have like this essentially what would be a level 0. It's something that's not usually shipped to the player, but it is something that will allow the coders to simulate situations that the player may see in the game. So we have our final in-game cutscene here, where we learn to dual wield. This is a really cool choice to take off the helmet. You never actually see the face. They're very careful about it because they want the Spartan to feel like a window pane character. And what I mean by that is they want you to feel like you are the one playing the game and not an attached face. That's why you never really see Master Chief's face. We might get a big reveal at the end of 6, but I think for the most part they do a good job of keeping the characters to themselves. And here we have our epilogue.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough. For you had already passed the torch, and because of you, we found Halo, unlocked its secrets, shattered our enemy's resolve. Our victory, your victory, was so close. I wish you could have lived to see it. But you belong to Reach. Your body,
Notice the new UNSC ship.
turned to glass.
This is them re-inhabiting Reach,
Your courage.
presumably
Yeah,
after
you gave to
Halo
us.
3 sometime.
And with it, we can rebuild.
And that is the very end of Reach. I know this mission is a lot shorter than a lot of the other ones, but I think it is the most impactful. For a lot of the reasons I've stated already. I think it's very good narrative design to be willing to sacrifice the main character of his story from the start and still have the character and the player build throughout the game. And it creates this like bittersweet feeling at the end of a game where you did your job, you should feel excited, but you feel a sense of melancholy because your character, the person that you did it all with, ends up dying. I thoroughly enjoy the Reach campaign. It is probably my favorite Halo campaign. Maybe second favorite. I don't know, it's hard to put them all in order. I think it is the one that had the most challenges from a design perspective, because from the very start of the story, we know that most of Noble Team does not make it off Reach. So having that knowledge and still being able to build a narrative story around that team while having to kill them off relatively quickly. I mean, that was what, 9-10 playable levels? So you have to develop characters, align them into a team, and then make their deaths impactful and meaningful to the players. All in very few levels, and all with the ultimate knowledge that the player already knows that they die or are removed from the team. And that's a difficult task because usually in a story you have control over the main character of the story, but in this particular case, you don't. You have to allow the player to feel like they have control over the story. So it's just a really tough task, and I think not a lot of people really appreciate the amount of detail and the attention to detail that went into the Halo Reach story. Like I said before, thank you so much for watching this series with us. I had a blast playing through and talking about this game. If you liked this style of series, please let us know down below. I'm more than happy to do this with a different game. Just give me a game, I will be glad to talk about it and babble incessantly as I make a complete failure of myself playing the game. With that said, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. It really does help us out. And hopefully we'll see you next time.